I'm Kaz and I review just for you. Revivals of old school games are coming out so frequently nowadays. Avoidance Blob, Deus Ex, XCOM, the list goes on. And personally, the revival I was looking forward to the most was Kid Icarus Uprising ever since it was announced at E3 2010. The question is, after over 20 years for another sequel to Pit's high-flying adventures, was the wait worth it? Let's find out.
The humans are taking a beating! They need our help!
First, let's talk about the story. No spoilers in this review, but to be honest, there's not that much to spoil. Medusa is revived after a 25-year hiatus, and Palutena sends Pit to stop her. It's nice that they tried to connect this to the first game, but the story as a whole isn't very interesting. It's just Pit and the other characters breaking up the fourth wall and telling corny jokes that you'd like to see on a Saturday morning cartoon. Though some of the jokes can be kind of funny, mostly because of how ridiculous they are, for the most part it's just the typical ooh, bad guys, defeat 'em all. There is a clever twist that reveals the true villain, but it doesn't change the fact that the story is rather childish.
Listen to that swagger. You've toughened up nicely, Pit. Remember when you'd be like, I'm finished all the time?
Also, seeing how it's based off of Greek mythology, I would have appreciated a more serious story, or perhaps one that's more tragic. A little humor is fine, but it doesn't have to go overboard. Though to be fair, most Nintendo games aren't exactly well known for their storytelling. Zelda, Fire Emblem, and Mario RPGs aside, overall though, the story isn't what's important about Uprising. That would be the gameplay. Unlike the original, which was a simple platformer, Kid Icarus plays more like a third-person shooter, for the most part. The game is broken down into two main sections, on-rail shooter portions, and the lengthier ground levels. The on-rail sections are fast-paced and thrilling. Every time feels exhilarating and refreshing, but it never overstays its welcome throughout the 25 levels. I've heard a lot of people complain about the controls in general, especially during the ground sections, but I never really had a problem with it after a half hour of adjusting. I think that getting used to them is the only hurdle in enjoying the game. But take it from a right-handed man, as I've seen the left-handed controls and they look terrible. Speaking of the ground sections, they're also well done. They may be limited as far as exploration, but are still enjoyable in their own right, with plenty of extra rooms and areas to unlock, along with extra weapons thanks to the Fiend's Cauldron. Speaking of the Fiend's Cauldron, the game's challenge can be as much or as little as you like thanks to it. You can raise or lower the difficulty from the normal setting for hearts, the game's currency, which in turn raises or lowers your chances of getting better weapons and abilities. If you beat the level without dying, you get a ton of spoils and rare weapons. If you die, you lose some of the hearts you threw in, and the difficulty goes down. It's a clever risk and reward system that actually makes you want to go to the highest difficulty. All of this adds together to make an incredible experience, and one of the most enjoyable games I've played in such a long time. There's also a multiplayer mode for online and offline competitive play. At first I thought this would be a throwaway mode, but it's a surprisingly addictive addition to this already packaged game. With so many additional modes, little unlockables and goodies ranging from weapon fusions to unlocking the soundtrack, that it's hard to do it all justice. You'll definitely be getting your money's worth out of Uprising. The presentation is outstanding. All of the character models have such detail and such fluent motion to them, it's astounding how much can go on at once without even a hint of frame rate drops. It comes close to the best graphics on the system, bar Resident Evil Revelations. And the game's musical score? I simply cannot do it justice. It is the best soundtrack on the 3DS by far, as of this review. The variety and quality of the music is exquisite, ranging from beautiful scores of the original to rock and guitar boss battles. But don't take my word for it, here's just a sample of a few. Pretty good, huh? The sound effects are also equally good. And even though the story is a tad too cheesy for my liking, the voice actors do a great job with what they have to work with, which is a good thing concerning voice work is plentiful throughout the game.
Normally I'd agree with you, but
What is it?
do you remember how long the power of flight lasts?
Finally, I must thank Masahiro Sakurai for putting Pit in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and all the members at Sword Limited that made this game possible. Why nobody asked for an Ice Climbers reboot after Melee, I don't know. But the desire for a new Kid Icarus game that was sparked by Brawl was the reason that Sword Limited decided that their first title would be a new Kid Icarus game. It's great when one franchise can give to another, like Melee did with Fire Emblem. and that's exactly what the case is here. Kid Icarus Uprising stands out as a fateful, yet modern revival of an old franchise, as well as an excellent game in its own right. If you have a 3DS and you don't own this game, go right ahead and pick it up, you won't be disappointed. I'll be honest, my expectations for this game weren't very high, but after playing it, I simply can't recommend it enough. Kid Icarus Uprising scores a 9 out of 10 for me. It soars above the rest. It is one of the best games for the system. Let your wings shine indeed.
Hurry, Pit. The people need your help.
Wait, I'm not finished yet. There's one last thing that I have to address. This piece of useless plastic. Not only does it not make any sense seeing how there was already a packaged in bonus with the AR cards, but it just baffles my mind as to why they would make this. If I'm gonna place my DS anywhere, I'm gonna place it on a table or in the DS charging cradle. Not to mention, what's the point of having a handheld on a stand when you're supposed to hold it in your hands?
Thank God. The last thing I want to do with my handheld is hold it with my hands.
Bottom line, throw out that piece of plastic and enjoy the game.